Okay, the usual thumbs up. Very good afternoon. It's Dominda from Aussizz in Perth again. We're going to talk about different stuff today. We have covered the 485s, we've covered all these skill visas, but today we're going to talk about love. Well, not love, but we're going to talk about spouse visas. Spouse visas are very interesting. We're getting a lot of queries from people who want to know specific aspects of different kind of spouse visas, and we're going to cover into all that kind of stuff. So if you've got questions about that, sit back, chill, and fire away. But I'm just going to go through the basic rudimentary aspects of what kind of spouse visas there are at the same time. So if you are a student down here, which most of you usually are, and you wanted to do a application, and whilst you're a student, you wanted to do a onshore application, so that becomes an 820, 801. Different requirements for that. You could perhaps, some of you wanted to not get married but still apply for a spouse visa, you can, so that becomes a de facto. We're going to go into covering what aspects of de facto evidence we need to provide and how particular perhaps the department have become, and rightfully so. Or conversely, if you think you don't have that requirements, which we'll cover that shortly, then if you wanted to get married, then we'll talk about how and what that entails. So we're going to cover that, or perhaps for some of you, you may want to get married offshore, and then we'll cover that at the same time, so that becomes a 309. All these numbers and acronyms will make some sense to you eventually, but so the bulk of what we're going to cover today is essentially spouse visas. So to start off, mainly the main concern here is that obviously you're of a legal age, and I think that's self-explanatory. At the same time, nobody is below 16 or 18. But you can have a relationship from that period of time, and then we don't get the technical side of things, but basically you need to be above 18. So if you've found yourself in that situation, then you ask yourself, how do you, whilst I'm putting the scenario now so it becomes a little bit more easier, if you're on a student visa and you want to get married to someone offshore, then that's fine. Then if you can bring the person down here, whilst usually on a visitor visa of some kind, that doesn't prevent her from lodging an onshore application. Or if you're saying no, that's fine, the family won't let the person come down here, but we're going to get married offshore, which is usually sometimes the case, depending on your cultures and your religious beliefs, then you get married offshore. Then that becomes, you get married there, so you're lodging the application offshore. The waiting processing time remains offshore for that period of time, which can be a bit of a problem for some people, but then just that's the nature of what it is. So once you pass the first stage, they say thumbs up, you provided evidence of various aspects to show that you have a genuine ongoing relationship, not just getting statements from family and friends to say yes, and I've got a marriage certificate, and I've gone for holidays, and I've got a bank statement. They need a little bit more than that, which again we'll get into details, but essentially by and large, that's an offshore application. The requirement really here, the queries we're getting from some people is they want to just do a de facto evidence. We find that a lot of them want to know what goes into a de facto evidence. So today I'm going to spend a little bit more time on that, because previously, for those who did follow this, I think when we did this, we covered spouse application in essence. So the de facto evidence, or the de facto visa onshore, is a good one, because the department really needs to see 12 months of living together evidence, and that can mean a lot of things in terms of they want to see at least a lease agreement that perhaps have both of your names, or at least if it's a shared lease, then someone or one of the main applicant is in there, but you really have to demonstrate this 12 months of togetherness, and they do count from when the relationship actually started. We have a light that's flickering, so that's very interesting. So that's where the relationship can actually go haywire. Sorry, the light joke is over my head at the same time. I do apologize if you hear the light flickering, or not here, if you see the light flickering, if it doesn't affect you, then that's fine. It doesn't affect me, so I'll just carry on. What many people fail to realize is, if you don't have this 12 months of living together evidence. It's not enough to just say, well, I've got a bank account, I've got health insurance under my name, or vice versa, and I've got family and friends who can vouch for our relationship. Is that okay? Yes and no. It's at the discretion of the case officer, but they can explicitly ask you for this 12 months of evidence. And if you are 10 and a half, 11 months of this living together aspect of it, where some people say, for example, so many scenarios to give you, but I'm just thinking about, say, somebody who's on a working holiday visa, which is quite popular, and they fall in love with a local person, and they said, well, because of their working holiday visa status, obviously it's very hard for them to prove this 12 months, but then they say, what if I got married? Then that's a marriage scenario. That means that you're moving away from the de facto aspect of it all. The marriage part needs you to get married, which is you need to have served out a notice of intention of marriage, where you, I just had one last week where this person, for religious purposes, had to get blessed by a local priest, and that priest became the marriage celebrant, and that person also was the same person to sign off on the notice of intentions of marriage. Now that's very critical because that takes 31 days. Now if you're in a situation where if your visa is ending or something of that nature, and then which sometimes can be the case, then you need to see that you've served out this before you are applying for the visa. So because that gets registered, therefore then you are eligible to apply for the onshore spouse application, which is the A20. So scenarios abound. Sometimes people, whenever we do this this live, people already have some preconceived ideas of their scenario, and they know either that, oh, does this apply for me, or they know of another situation and stuff like that. Feel free, as I'm going on, if it's particular in your case, shoot in an email question, or not an email question. I think we have my colleague, which is across the room for me. She can field some questions. There is no requirements for showing funds or anything like that. The local sponsor might be required to, and usually is required to, do a police clearance. They will require to do a Form 888 from the sponsor as well as the applicant at the same time. So generally that's used by a PR person or someone who is also a citizen, or someone who already has been granted their PR. If you don't have any other form, maybe the grant letter can be used as proof for the person who's signing off on that Form 888, which, by the way, is a requirement that just lends some weight to the stories that you are saying, that this is how you met, the relationship is genuine, how long they have known you and your spouse, and so forth. That gets signed off, that gets submitted together with other documents like personal statements from family and friends. A good tip is, it's usually good to have, if you're the main applicant, you need to have sometimes family from both sides attesting to that the relationship is true and genuine and ongoing. Because we get situations before when I say to them, oh, well, have you got this and this signed? He says, yeah, but my family haven't signed it yet, but perhaps my auntie might, or my uncle, but not my parents or my brother or sister. And I said, why? I asked them. Sometimes it's through religious objections, or they don't like things happening because you're marrying out, or any other reason. It can become a situation because the department can begin to think, well, how good, how genuine and how strong is the relationship, but that's not the department's call. It's up to you to substantiate that through other means at the same time. You directly can get attestations done from the extended family at the same time to say that, not to say that this relationship is not true or not ongoing. These are actual genuine cases at the same time that I'm drawing some experiences from. In terms of documentations, it's pretty standard. If you've traveled, if you've been anywhere else, you can use all that as proof. Not good enough, the good old, oh, I've got a bank account that I opened 6 months ago and it's only got $200 inside. What does that do? You're going to find further evidence that you want to demonstrate around it. what are your religious beliefs, what are your cultural beliefs, what are your social beliefs, not beliefs, but practices. What do you do, where you've gone, what you've done, what are your future plans? That's good. What have you undertaken? So when they see that, once again, like any genuine, open, ongoing, registered relationship, if you want to call it a marriage, then they want to see all those kind of evidence. So if you think something applies to you, but you're not certain, how does this scenario work out and whatnot, we usually get an email that says, it's usually a paragraph or two saying that how they met, what it is, they don't know whether they have enough, and do they qualify for that. And that's where I suppose we come in the picture, and very happy to take a lot of questions off air if you like. And I don't know whether, are we getting any questions already?
There is one question from Jigar Patel.
Hey, Jigar.
Which one is better if my fiance lives abroad? Do I need to bring her in Australia on a visitor visa and marry her? Or is it better to go abroad and marry there and then apply for dependent visa for her?
Firstly, you've just taken that one part where I just said, if it's your choice though. So if you wanted to still get married because the family warrants it, or you need, that person cannot come down here for whatever reason, then you get married offshore. But if that is not the case for you, especially Jigar, then she comes down, or the partner comes down here on a visitor visa, provided the visitor visa is granted without a no further stay condition. Because if you have that, then you can get married down here, nothing stopping you, but you cannot lodge an onshore application, if that makes sense. Because by lodging an onshore application, only then you get a bridging visa, that keeps you here, the married lovebirds, for the period of time for the first stage. Otherwise, then you will be spending a lot of time traveling to and fro at the same time. So the choice is really yours. I think that answers this question.
He's saying, is it better to go abroad and marry there and then apply for dependent visa? I think he's on a student visa.
So he's clearly on a student visa.
Yeah,
so,
student or 485.
Yeah, so if you are in that case, then if you are saying that you want to get married and you haven't let the department know that you are already in that status right now, because currently you're still single, then you have to get married to add this person as a dependent on your visa in the first place. So then you go and get married if that's what you want to do, because that offshore processing to add that person onto your visa as a dependent, depending on how long you've left on your visa, makes a difference, because offshore processing can take a little bit longer, is my point to you. So for example, to give you a specific example, let's say you're on a temporary graduate 485 visa and you want to go and get married, which is usually the case. You've graduated, you finish, you're on a TR, and your family gets you married off to whatever, right? Then you go and get married, bring the person here on a visitor visa. You're taking a chance here because you don't know whether you're going to get the no further stay condition on her visitor visa. If that condition doesn't apply to the visa, happy days. Get married, bring the person here, then you add the person from onshore on a dependent visa, because you've got more than a year left of your visa. That makes sense. If you've got about 6 months left, you're chancing on being added before you apply for your 190, 491, or 189, or whatever. I think that covers it.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
For now. Yeah.
For now. Okay. So that, at least one question was covered. I'm gonna give you I could give you a case study, but the case studies are going to be of no use if you think about how particularly it might actually apply to you. What if you've applied for a visa and onshore? Okay, you applied for an 820 onshore, everything is good, you've paid the department that wonderful sum of money, and your relationship breaks down. I mean, this is something to talk about as well at the same time in the spouse visa applications. Spouse visa applications, or as well as de facto, because you've lodged, your relationship has broken down. Now, you're absolutely obliged to let the department know straight away, because you can't be withholding that information. Now, if it's broken down irretrievably and you cannot mend it, nothing has happened, and if it's a marriage basis, depending on how long you've been married, and if you can still demonstrate that you've been hard done by, or something bad has happened, or worse still, your partner, the person sponsoring you, has passed on, you can actually make provisions to still be, seeing this thing through. Don't take it that you can't, right? Or worst case scenario, you are abused and something has happened and you feel that you've been wronged by all of this, so you can demonstrate certain things that has happened against you, and when you can prove that to the department, you still get your visa. Long process, but that's, like I said earlier on, let's hope that that doesn't apply to you in that case. I had a case where the person was married, first stage done, second stage all done at the same time. The person was about 2.5 months away from actually getting the grant, so it was a good 3 years wait for the actual full, hey, you go, you're a PR, so to speak. But the person didn't mention that the relationship was actually broken down more than a year ago. But so the department found out. When the department finds out, they know. So they asked this person, "Can you prove what? Tell us why you've not this and that, the other. Give reason as to why we should not cancel your visa." Now you can't say anything else, because your time to demonstrate what I just said earlier on in terms of that something has happened to you in a relationship, you can't suddenly use that to back up to say this and that has happened and therefore they should still grant the visa by that means. So in this instance, the visa was refused. So this person waited good 3.5 years, and things can happen. So that's one of the challenges, and if you want to call it danger, in getting married, perhaps, because they really want to see that it's a genuine, ongoing relationship. It's not fun that for an agent, sometimes you get a client come back and tell you that, you're like, whoa, you were there, you were so close to getting that. It's like any other visa, but spouse visas, usually that's the hardship, because then this person had to leave and all the rest of it, there was no other options, so it became pretty bad. Then the relationship has broken down. So just to let you know, if you're in it for the long haul. It's just not something that you apply and you're going to be granted something within a month and a half or a year and a half or something like that. So do the right thing, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. Do we have any questions at all?
I've got one question, but that's not related to partner visa.
Okay.
It's from Parveen Sharma.
Okay.
Hi, I'm doing Master of Teaching. I am thinking to do 4 years study to waive off IELTS 7788 requirement. I already did Master of Education 1 year plus Master of Teaching 2 year. Can I do a graduate diploma 1 year to fulfill 4 years?
I did say that in the beginning of this this broadcast, if you want to call it. So if I begin to answer that one question, there's going to be a flood of questions coming in asking about those particular things. That question that you have specifically relates to an ongoing application, an assessment that I'm doing for a client. So if you like, you have my details, you can email me and I can tell you offline what you need to do, because I really wanted to spend that much time at least just on spouse visa application questions and whatnot, because it doesn't become fun or fair for some people who might have a question related to maybe spouse, which is the topic that we're talking about today. Although as a migration agent, I'm more than happy at liberty to answer that question, but if it's okay with you, if you like to email me offline, you have our contact and I can provide that, and I'm happy to take that question. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is I would just want to try to limit this particular Facebook Live for that purpose, if that's okay. Polite.
Another one is from Sayeed Singh.
Mm-hmm.
I am in Canada on my study visa and my girlfriend is in Australia on her study visa. We plan to get married after our studies. We both are from India and plan to permanently settle in Australia. Where should we marry and which kind of visa to apply?
Okay, wow. So she's a student, he's also a student in Canada.
In Canada.
And really, if he, from what I understand very clearly, we get this kind of scenarios quite often. If she's on a student visa that's got still a lot of time, then it's entirely up to you where you want to get married. It really doesn't make a difference, because that she's a student, she's not sponsoring you, right? So sponsoring you in the sense that you're not talking about what visas we're talking about here, where somebody gets married to a citizen or PR. So what you're talking about, both of you are effectively students, and one of them decides to get married. So say from here, if you're a student here and you've got a while more to go on your student visa, then you get married primarily because you want to leave your Canada situation and be added onto the person studying down here. Fine, you get married wherever you can. In this case, it has to be offshore, or you can be onshore. It's entirely up to you. Then you get added onto that person who's here, that person's visa, as a dependent. Okay, it's a subsequent entry because of, if that makes sense, because she is studying here, right? So she's a student down here, so she just gets, you just get added onto her visa down here until whatever, so she finishes the studies, and so you effectively will finish in Canada. You'll be down here.
Next question is from Andy. I am with Defector partner. If I apply EOI alone, single, what can happen?
Why would you? Oh, okay. So you want to apply single because you want to get 10 points. So if you are already on a de facto partner visa, that's strange. So if I understand you correctly, Andy, if you have an actual de facto visa application in the system, why did you see that through? Or are you saying because that's too long, you don't know, you want to strike out on your own? If you strike out on your own, you effectively still have to make that in your EOI that you have a de facto partner, because that's a relationship and that's what you have claimed. And when you file an actual application for that, so you cannot claim to be single if that's your question, just to get the extra 10 points. So be careful of that.
That's it.
That's it. Awesome. Hey, I know sometimes some of you may have another question, or you might see this at a later time or something like that. Much appreciated for those who've actually tuned in and did ask those questions. Happy to take any questions offline at another time on any other topic, but offline. But for spouse, for those who have actually tuned in, thank you very much, and hope to do another Facebook Live.